Sharon Gao, Faire Cuisine final project, steeped and brewed in gender. My final research presentation is about the gendered perceptions of tea and coffee in the modern US and how they picked up gender meanings not because of the drinks themselves were gendered, but because the spaces, labor roles, and the cultural narratives built around them were. During the Victorian era, tea was linked with refinement, grace, and a formal social life. Tea gatherings gave women a socially acceptable way to enter semi-public spaces without their male chaperoning them, like tea gardens, which helped reinforce tea's feminine image in the West. And at the same time, tea was also a status symbol because anyone wealthy enough to drink it drank it at home regardless of their gender. And after the American Revolution, tea became tied to British rule, and so because it became unpatriotic to drink tea, Americans began rejecting it and coffee emerged as the preferred drink. As coffee became more popular, coffee houses spread through Europe and the colonies. They became the main male-centered public spaces for their politics, news, and business, basically the exchange of intellect and information. Women were discouraged from attending and rarely participated in these conversations because they were so legally and socially marginalized anyway. And being seen in public in these public coffee houses were socially transgressive at the time because they were so male dominated. In the 1800s, the military runs on coffee and it becomes embedded in military life. Soldiers weren't fighting every day, but they were drinking coffee every day. It helped fuel their routine, bonding, and planning, and it helped build camaraderie and identity, especially in groups like the Marines, and it strengthened the link between coffee and masculine endurance, discipline, and duty. Another group that drank coffee that helped cement coffee as a rugged, masculine beverage were cowboys. In the American West, cowboys and pioneers brewed a simple, strong coffee over open flames. It was intentionally dark, unsweetened, because it was supposed to be practical, helping workers stay alert through long and exhausting days. Cowboy coffee became a symbol of grit, toughness, and frontier masculinity. The temperance movement was women promoting the abstinence of drinking alcohol because of the perceived negative effects it had. And so coffee houses and dry bars were a respectable alternative to saloons. However, allegedly a lot of women were also petitioning against the drinking of coffee because it replaced the social need of bars so well that it still kept men away from the families at late hours, and the energizing effects of coffee still seemed like a unknown symptom. Tea rooms grew popular mainly because women just needed a respectable place to socially dine without a male chaperone. And a lot of these tea rooms actually became the space for reform movements like the temperance movement, like the women's liberation movement. And by the 1900s, women increasingly saw them as symbols of female independence and social belonging. Early tea rooms, pictured here and here for example, began as home-based or garden spaces where women served tea and made light meals for income. Hosting and feeding guests were seen as extensions of domestic labor, which made entering the workforce socially acceptable for women because it was already what they were doing. By the early 20th century, mass advertising emerges and strengthens existing gender norms. Tea ads feature archetypes such as the fashionable modern woman or the traditional housewife, and coffee ads show housewives serving their husbands and that making good coffee was part of being a good husband pleaser. Companies recognized that women made the majority of household products, so they leaned into the idea of tea being feminine, Over here we have the modern woman, and then over here this is the woman as a server to her husband, or more broadly even men. During World War II, many women joined the paid workforce and were even seen as patriotic while doing it. They were shown in coffee ads more, but once the war was won, ads shifted back towards women being of service to their husbands. It was very selective female empowerment, showing that advertisers pick and choose the message that they want to send and the gender roles they want to portray that will sell their product more. The 50s were probably the height of gender norms and the marketing of it. Ads include the husband-pleasing coffee, justified domestic abuse, and the very clear depiction of women, even young girls, as the ones who are expected to serve. As for tea, women's image is again being portrayed as extremely feminine, polite, domestic, and also in servitude of her husband. Gender norms slightly evolve, and coffee becomes part of workplace culture. Women are seen drinking coffee more. It's being reflected in ads. However, women are still being shown as the servers of coffee, and are shown drinking it in a gentle, polite, or feminine manner, while coffee and men are shown more energetic and practical. Tea also gains a health focus, integrating it with hippie and counterculture.
The first beautiful weekend after we got married, I took my new bride sailing. Wife, I said, marriage is a democracy, but a sailboat isn't. Here, the captain gives orders to the crew. Me, captain, you, crew. First order, Maxwell House coffee. See? Blue can, good to the last drop. Maxwell House. Smell it. That's the way coffee should smell. Now, taste it. Maxwell House. Never bitter, never stale, always good to the last drop. So on this ship, it's Maxwell House and nothing else, or somebody walks the plank. And if you'd be a good little Maxwell House wife and serve it at home, too, I'd be so grateful.
Maxwell House Coffee from General Foods.
Tea gains new associations through wellness culture, global trade, and social media. Because tea isn't gendered in the rest of the world like it is in the US, foreign imports of tea very visually show the lack of gendered bias in its gender-neutral packaging and marketing. And the rise of specialty coffee makes it popular among any gender. However, sweet drinks are still considered feminine, and social media turns cafe drinks into identity signals, where posting aesthetic beverages become part of lifestyle branding, which is popular especially among women bloggers and influencers. At the same time, new stereotypes emerge, such as the basic white girl pumpkin spice latte trope, which is rooted in misogyny, shaping online lingo, and the performative male that uses matcha as soft, curated masculinity. From wine, punch, tea, and finally the brightly colored sugary drinks with whipped cream on top that we know today, the idea that fruitier and sweeter drinks were always historically feminine. The association of women and indulgent, photocentric culture is strong, and it was always most clear on social media. Ever since the early 2000s, when Starbucks released Frappuccinos and then the Unicorn Frap, its bright, fun colors of a sweet, indulgent treat instantly became viral. Customers were happily posing with their drinks in selfies, and the casual, everyday nature of these posts signal the trends that people could afford to partake in because these were $6 a drink. In addition, even without specifying any gender in my searches, such as drinking tea or drinking wine, women are almost always highlighted in the results. This shows a societal bias and of our associations with tea and wine, but also an advertiser bias because those people are the ones paying for these pictures to be shown in these search engines. This period shows that gender roles aren't gone. They've just moved into symbolism, aesthetics, and online identity. 25 things all basic white girls do during the fall. Get on that pumpkin spice latte grind. A pumpkin spice latte walks into a Starbucks and orders a white girl. If you say pumpkin spice latte in the mirror 3 times, a white girl in yoga pants will appear and tell you all her favorite things about fall. The pumpkin spice latte became a pop culture symbol for a very specific stereotype: the white middle class femininity framed as shallow or conformist. The joke isn't really about the drink, it's about policing women's consumption choices and trivializing things associated with young women. When those foods blow up, we judge women for falling for the marketing or trying to jump on the bandwagon, and we assume that because they like something other women like, they can't have minds of their own. The pumpkin spice latte meme reinforces an expectation that women's consumer behaviors are visible, aestheticized, and open to public judgment, while men's coffee consumption is still framed as neutral or normal. Teas are still marketed for women's balance, slimming, detox, or hormone support, while tea for men are marketed for strength or performance. However, this isn't exclusive to the US, nor is it inherently bad. Gender distinctions are always prevalent, even globally, and teas are a natural way to promote women's or men's health. Like in China, it's very common to have medicinal herbal teas for your period pain. An association that is negative, however, is the performative male. It's a recent internet term for a man adopting soft, aesthetic, and emotionally aware traits, not always out of preference, usually to signal progressive values and to attract women. Only because matcha is trending now. Matcha has deep cultural roots in Japan, where it isn't gendered, but in the US, matcha rose through wellness cafes and lifestyle branding, which turned it into a visible aesthetic symbol. For some men, preparing or posting matcha becomes a part of curated identity, thoughtful, artistic, and socially aware, rather than just a drink of choice. It becomes a way to perform a version of modern masculinity rather than reject gender norms entirely. Everywhere else in the world, tea is generally not gendered. It functions as a symbol of hospitality, community, and harmony, and it's part of daily ritual in many countries like China, India, Turkey, Ireland, UK, Japan, etc. Even where historical tea ceremonies reflect gendered roles, modern practice is far more inclusive and communal based. The contrast shows that US gender associations around tea are cultural constructs through historical marketing, not universal truths. As long as gender continues to carry cultural recognizable traits, behaviors, and aesthetics, those meanings will keep being applied to ordinary things, including the drinks we choose, whether or not our actual preferences still follow old patterns. That was my presentation. Thank you very much. These are my citations.